In a lot of my videos this year, I've been talking about how to use AI to help you write. And I know that a lot of what I've said has been like, don't use it, which is unrealistic, or try not to do it this way, or check it for these kinds of things. I've given a lot of guidelines about when not to use it, or what to watch out for, or what to make sure isn't happening if you're using AI to help you write. The truth is that most of us, AI tools are in everything that we're using right now. They're in all of our apps. They're in our email programs. They're in our all the tools we use to write and communicate at work. And maybe they're not in every single tool, but they are prolific. And so they are popping up everywhere. And this month I want to talk about what is AI writing good for? Okay? Because it is useful. I mean, so many of us are using it and it is helping us and supporting us. And while there are caveats and cautions and things I want us to be aware of, I want to give you some tips this month on what it does really well. Okay? So, here are a couple of ways you can use AI generated writing. You can use it for templates you create, right? So if you're going to say the same thing over and over and over again, you've said it a million times to a bunch of different people, and it's always this sort of copy and paste, you can use AI to create that base template so that it's accessible. You can copy and paste it in. It can save those kinds of patterns and use them again, which is another thing that it's really good for. You might have something that you say a lot, frequently, you have to explain to people, but you have to say it in different ways to different audiences. We change our vocabulary and sentence structure depending on who we're talking to. So AI is actually really good at taking content that you've written in one space and applying it to a different space if you give it enough information about what the original was written for and what you need it written for now. If you can help it understand that context, then it can easily make those shifts for you. So it's really good at helping change the tone of something. You know, here I wrote it for an expert audience, and now I need to explain it to our customers who don't have the same knowledge, right? It can help with that. It can also adapt things. You have the same content, but you need it to be, I don't know, 200 characters for a post on social media, but then you need it to be expanded to 500 words for a grant application, and then you need it to be 3 sentences in an email. It can take that same content and expand or contract it depending on those restrictions pretty easily, which is helpful. You can also use it if you just have a rough idea of what you want to say. AI can take that rough idea and turn it into complete and correct sentences pretty easily. So you start with your own, I want to tell this story, or I have this information. I want to take this content that is in my head and turn it into something that can be shared with others. It can move that from a rough idea to a more coherent idea. It can do that, but you're still going to have to review its output to make sure that it works for your audience and your purpose the way that you want. But it is helpful that I can type in, I need to write up this data in this report. I need to write it in, 2 pages of no more than 8 paragraphs, go. And it can present that for your review. So that can be really helpful, taking your rough ideas and turning them into more polished, usable content. And then one more thing is that you can use AI to proofread, right? It's been programmed with all of those rules. The caveat there is that because AI uses tokens, we want to be really careful about having it write as one step and having it proofread as a separate step, just like we would do with a human, because it can make mistakes in the production of text that it can't catch, that it doesn't catch, because of the way that it produces text based on prediction. So if an error is common, or it gets stuck in a loop somewhere, as happens behind in the processing, it might generate something that doesn't make sense or is grammatically incorrect because it's not actually reading and putting things together. So you do have to ask it to proofread as a separate step from generating text. All right, but those are some of the things it can do really well in terms of producing writing. But mostly what I like to use it for, what I think is the most helpful thing it can do, is help me produce better writing. So my favorite thing about AI as a tool for helping people write is that it has infinite patience. It will never get tired of answering your questions and coming up with ideas or listening to your ideas, right? So one of its most valuable aspects is simply that every time you ask, it's going to respond. Every time. You can ask for, I need a presentation title. Give me 10 possibilities. And then you can say, no, I hate all of those. Give me another 10 and another 10 and another 10. And it will never stop giving you 10. Sometimes it starts to repeat itself because it is generating those titles based on prediction. And those predictions are averages, are means. And so you will see some of the same things spiral through because they're common. All right, that's how it works. But infinite patience, brainstorming, coming up with ideas. Related to that, it can find gaps in your ideas. So if you say, here's what I'm thinking, give me a counter argument to it. It can do that. Or here's what I'm thinking, what are some of the things that I'm missing, right? What am I not thinking about? I like to ask, I put in a set of information and I say, go through and ask me every single question you can come up with about this content. I just say, ask me every question. So ask me objections, ask me for clarification, ask me every single thing you can think of that will help me produce better content. And there are still some problems with that, but it can be very helpful. Okay, so just a couple more things that it can be useful for. You have a giant report and you don't want to read it all. You can ask it to summarize the report, or, go through this text and tell me every place that it talks about X, right? Or does it have any information in it about Y? So you can ask it to summarize large amounts of information for you. Now, there's some risk there because unless you're checking by reading the entire document, you don't know for certain that that summary is accurate. But if you're just trying to find, like, I've got 20 sources, I can't read them all, I'm trying to find which ones are most relevant to a task, I can ask AI, which of these 20 sources should I start with in order to find the most information relevant to what I'm searching for? Right? It can also synthesize stuff. So if you give it multiple documents or multiple pieces of information, it can combine those and say, because of this and because of this, from these two different documents, we have this idea, right, that provides another meaning or another aspect of something. So you can ask it to combine information from various sources, which can be helpful. And then probably what I think is the most helpful is that you can ask it about your own patterns. So what does it know about you? What does it know about you as a communicator? What does it know about you as a writer? You can ask it, where you can improve. Don't always take its advice, but you can ask it where you can improve. What does it notice? What does it see about how you say things or how you shape ideas? Because we are rarely aware of our own patterns in the communication that we do at work. And so having that external viewpoint can sometimes be very enlightening. What does it see? AI is a pattern recognition and regeneration machine. And so it is most useful when it is either relying on patterns to recreate, right? Those patterns in new ways. So apply the pattern to a new context, audience, purpose, something, but it will look and have a lot of characteristics of that pattern that exists in the data. So that can be useful. And it can be really useful at just recognizing patterns. So You can have it analyze other people's patterns. You can have it analyze your own patterns, but it is a pattern recognition first and then regeneration second machine. All right, once you're thinking about it as a pattern recognition and regeneration machine, you can apply that to how you use it to help you, to support you in the communication that you do at work.